We'll talk about that after.
Yeah.
Progressive Voices. Welcome back to the Combo Couch, everyone. I am Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
Yes, she is. And there's Johnny Sue on those ones and twos, spinning away. And in the studio, we have a great guest. It is the last day of our candidate month, and we have a special one. This guy has knocked on 3,000 doors.
About 4,000.
4,000 doors, because last week it was 3,000. It's 1,000 a week. 2,000 phone calls. How many more?
Actually, we're at 3,500 phone
3,500 phone calls. He is running.
Selling him.
I know, right? He's running for State Assembly in District 49. Mr. Bryan Mesinas Perez is here today. How you doing, brother?
Doing all right, man. Thank you guys for having me.
It's great that you're here, man. We had a really fun month. We've interviewed a lot of candidates, a lot of local candidates too as well, and they've been really like sleepers, is what we call them, is what I call them. You might not think they're like going to be the best candidate, but then they come in and bada. And when I say bada, I'm talking about your issues page. I really do love it. But give us it right off the bat. In District 49, what is your number one pressing issue for you?
Number one, it's between homelessness, right? Mm-hmm. And being able to afford rent and buy a house.
Yeah.
Like, it really is. Those are the two main things. My platform, my vision, right, is get money out of politics, end homelessness with the statewide plan, right, and restore the American dream of homeownership, right? Yeah. It's interesting. Bernie people love getting money out of politics. Immediately they get triggered. Oh, hey, you're trying to do that? Great. Most other people, right, that I knock at their door, apathetic voters, they either hear the homelessness problem and get fired up, and they're like, how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
And I'll tell them about the plan, right? Or restore the American dream of cracking down on foreign investors, right? Building developers, right? Everybody buying up our land, commodifying it. Not letting us not giving us the opportunity to buy a house, right, and increasing our rent. That's the kind of stuff that also fires up another group of supporters.
Yeah.
So it's between those two. Those are the two main concerns, but essentially it's just housing.
Yeah.
It really is just housing. That's the big thing in the San Gabriel Valley right now.
Yeah.
And what exactly, though, is your plan on how to tackle that? Because people say, oh, yeah, homelessness is my one issue, but it's such a huge issue, not only in the San Gabriel Valley, but also statewide and even nationally.
Yeah, well, we need a brand new plan. If we keep trying to do the homeless shelters, right? The homeless shelters, sometimes it's a little bit, you have to follow a lot of rules.
Yeah.
I've gone to the encampments. I've talked to the homeless people, even the ones in San Gabriel Valley. A lot of them say, I don't want to go to homeless shelters. We have to check out by 10 a.m. We have to check back in by 5 p.m. We can't be out later than 8 or 10 p.m. If they want to go through our stuff to make sure we don't bring any drugs or paraphernalia in. If you're going to treat me like a little kid, I'll just stay on the streets, right? And if you're an addict, right, the chances of you going out for help, if those resources aren't available, you're just going to stay in that cycle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is follow the Salt Lake City or the New York City model. Just give them housing first, right? So we're not talking about an apartment. I'm not talking about a house. We're talking about a room, right? Just basic needs. A bed, place to put their things, lock their door for privacy, security. No requirements needed. But then the next step in my plan would have to be job retraining, because a lot of them haven't worked in years.
Yes.
Right? Drug rehabilitation for those that want it and need it, because if they don't want to get clean, they're not going to.
Yeah.
Right? And lastly, give them a job. Whether we have to subsidize their income at an employer, right? We're going to pay $6 of their wage or $5 of their wage for like 6 months or a year, see if they actually can do the job. Hopefully it'll give them that opportunity to make their life better and turn them into taxpayers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's an untapped resource, labor, right?
Yeah.
And there's a ton of them not working.
Exactly. That's really smart, because that, to me, kind of sounds like bridge housing.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
That's the closest thing that I've seen. Bridge housing provides mental health care as well. It goes a few steps above a shelter, where you're trying to rehabilitate rather than treat them as children or people unable to take care of themselves, because the whole point is for these people to be put back into the economy. Yeah, working members of productive members of society. So that's a really good point.
But that's not going to stop the influx of homeless people. You know what I'm saying? That's not going to stop the growth of more and more homeless people. What do you do to change that systemically, to stop people from becoming homeless? As a state assemblyman, what can you do to really say, okay, we're going to really nip this in the butt. We're going to get nuanced about this.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, so, I mean, I think we got to give the housing, but it has to be in every single city in the state of California.
Yeah.
Right. So every city has to do it because let's face it, the wealthier areas don't do their part.
No, they don't.
They use their private police, right, for their city. I'm not private as in like, corporation.
Yeah, we know what you mean.
But for their city.
Yeah.
And they don't make it illegal to be homeless. They just make it uncomfortable for them to be there. Right. And they push them into our middle class and working class neighborhoods.
Yep.
Right. That's why we go a couple blocks away, right, to Arcadia. They don't have any homeless people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
But then you go a few blocks south to South El Monte, you'll see a lot of homeless people.
Yeah.
So we need to crack down on them and make sure every city does their part. So every city has to have designated homeless housing, right?
Yeah.
Not shelters. And then we need to do affordable and low income housing in every
Yeah.
city in the state. And we got to say no to foreign investors coming here, buying our houses cash.
And the developers with
Yeah,
the gentrification.
The developers as well, right? But in the San Gabriel Valley, we've been seeing it a lot. We see a lot of empty houses, right? And a lot of these houses were bought cash. I've had over 10 stories now, personal stories from people in the San Gabriel Valley, Rosemead, El Monte, and Alhambra, that they've had either their neighbors or themselves offered, somebody will come knock on their door, tell them, how much for the house? And like, it's not for sale. And they'll be like, we'll give you $300,000 more than the selling price. Yeah, cash, but you got to be out in 30 days. Like, this is a normal occurrence. And these are just the ones that said no, right?
Yeah.
What about the ones that said yes? We see their houses get knocked down, and because it's such a big lot, they'll build 3 of those McMansions there. And some of them will just be empty.
Yeah.
So it's a way for them to just hide their money there.
But how do you crack
launder it.
down on that? It's money.
I think we need to do protectionist laws in California. Something I've been thinking about. You don't live in the state, you can't buy a house here, right?
Wow.
And that's one, because we need to stop commodifying our properties here.
Yeah.
Right. Another thing could be is you have to live in California for 5 years before you buy a house. Right. So this wouldn't prevent undocumented immigrants from being a homeowner here, because a lot of them, right, they come here, they work hard, they try to get that American dream, and then after a couple of years they buy a house. But this is for the the golden visas that we're seeing, right? A lot of foreign billionaires, $100,000 into any business. You go to the front of the line, you get here, they come to California, San Gabriel Valley in particular, buy the houses cash. So we got to crack down on that. We got to be a little bit more protectionist about our property, in my opinion.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I could agree with that. Maybe just you would have to find a medium to where it doesn't hurt the people who are, here and working hard.
Yeah. I hear some people
seems
screaming about that one.
Yeah, I could hear.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I've been talking with a couple of Republicans because the voter data was messed up, right?
Yeah.
But I was speaking with them, and they loved it, and Democrats loved it, and no party preferences loved it. Everybody says we do need to be protectionist about our neighborhoods.
I do think so.
We don't want these building developers coming here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We don't want these foreign investors coming here. We need to do something to make sure we give opportunities to Californians to become homeowners, right?
Yeah.
Not to give it away to these special interests or to these foreign billionaires with H-1B visas. Or which one's the one, the golden visa? I can't remember what it's called. I think it's an H-1B visa.
I think it's H1.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the only follow-up I have to that is that seems like you're repairing or fixing the things that are on the surface to stop, the bleeding at top.
Mm-hmm.
But how are you going to jumpstart, the economy or be a part of that to make sure that people don't end up getting homeless? Because I know a lot of people end up being homeless because of their medical bills and they can't afford to pay it.
Yeah.
They're on the street. So is there anything aside from that? Because I know you're going to be for Medicare for All, but
100%.
what are you going to do for the economy to make sure that people don't become homeless because they have a good source of income and a good source of planning?
Yeah, with that, I think we need to do much more public works infrastructure spending, right? Whether it's a Green New Deal, right? Or we need to build up our roads. We need to build up our highways because our infrastructure right now for our freeways are terrible.
Yeah.
Right? We have so much traffic, and it's getting worse year by year. So we need to redesign our entire highway system, our entire streets, because these streets were built, I don't know how many decades ago, right?
Yeah,
and the
a long time
populations have blown up in these areas. So we need to do a long-term infrastructure spending so we can kickstart our economy.
There you go.
And then we also need to help out our small businesses, because I've talked to a couple small business owners. Some of them are getting ready to leave California because they say that it was a crazy thing. I never thought about this. They told me it's so hard to pay Uncle Sam what they owe.
Yeah.
It's like absurd, right?
Yeah.
And what they were saying is, why is it that I have to be an accountant as well, or have to pay somebody so they can do my taxes when all I'm trying to do is work on off-road equipment or make boba or work on my restaurant? Or you guys been to Rose City Pizza in Rosemead?
No.
I mean, I'm not sponsored by them. They don't support me. But I just love their pizza. They're
Gotcha.
great. That guy can make some great pizza.
Gotcha.
Right? And if you can make great pizza, if you can make any of these things, I want you to focus on your craft, right? I don't want you to also focus on being an accountant. So one of the things I do want to push for small businesses, we have to make it free or super easy, super simple for them to file their taxes in California for small business and entrepreneurs. Walmart, all these other companies, they can do their own.
Yeah.
But our small businesses, they say there's a lot of regulation they have to follow, which they do.
Yeah.
But then also paying taxes becomes like a hurdle they have to jump through.
Yeah.
So we have to make it easier for them to stay here. So when this infrastructure spending comes, they can focus on their craft, and then business keeps coming in.
Yeah. And also, that I don't think anybody is too focused right now on how small businesses can't keep up with corporations. I mean, they need tax cuts. They need more support, and I don't think we're giving it to them. I know at least 8 restaurants that have closed in Pasadena in the last 6 months because they can't afford the increase of wages. That now minimum wage has to be higher, and they're fine to pay that. But then with that, of course, the rent is increasing, and they can't afford that, plus the taxes. And so that is pushing small businesses out, where you have mostly corporations being the ones that are left, where people go to eat and spend their money. And it's a shame, because these are, people that are middle class, that are wanting to have very niche and crafts type of businesses that are not the same thing as a corporation where it's all the same, and they're just driven out by the system, which makes it impossible.
Too much red tape for small businesses and stuff. I mean, that's when we talk about regulations.
I think we need to do different tiers for businesses.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like, I really do, and I don't mean small business as like 50 employees or less, because if everything becomes automated, all right, if you can keep 49 employees, you're still considered a small business.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be multiple tiers, right? If you have X amount of revenue, right, you're considered a big business, right? Maybe $20 million, $10 million in revenue, right? If you don't meet that threshold, but you have, let's say, 100 employees, right? Maybe that's a bigger business, right? Or how much profit you make, right? Because businesses will be very good at hiding which way, so they can meet less regulations, right? Whether their revenue, if they have to decrease it a little bit, or whether their employees, they have to keep them lower, right? Or their profits, right? Because they keep reinvesting real quick.
Yeah.
Right. So they take a loss, like Amazon. What is it? They paid less than zero last year. So essentially, they gained zero in profit, right? But they tell the shareholders different. So make sure we are cracking down on everybody like that, because our small business owners, they're not making $20 million in revenue. No. They're not making $10 million or $5 million in profit, right? And they only have a couple employees. Some of them have 50 or 60 employees, but they're still a small business by their profits or their revenue.
Yeah. So I know you're running for state assembly, but how do you plan on making an impact locally when it comes to climate change? What are a few things that you could do?
The thing that I think is very underserved, and AOC and Bernie Sanders are doing this more and more now, is we need people that are getting in the community and empowering local leaders as well. Like, how AOC's endorsing Jessica Cisneros, right? Bernie Sanders is endorsing her too. They're endorsing all these people that are down ballot candidates. And we haven't really seen too much of that. And, first time I saw it was with AOC. As soon as she won the primary, she became a star, right? What did she do immediately? She went to Kanya Laing in Hawaii and helped him for his state Senate seat or his congressional seat. I can't remember. She used her platform to empower him and bring attention to him. So if we can empower local candidates at city council levels that want to do this green infrastructure spending, that want to do stuff for getting us off of fossil fuels, we need to make sure we do a wide change from the ground up.
Yeah.
So winning this state assembly seat, because I'm doing it, the populist way, knocking doors, actually talking to people. If we have this massive amount of support going, we can use it to help out other real progressive candidates that do believe in climate change.
Yeah, let me push back on a second too, because also Bernie Sanders did endorse Mike Levin, Jimmy Gomez.
Yeah.
He endorsed some really bad candidates as well. That really are. Mike Levin was a fracking lobbyist for crying out loud. And, some of the stuff that AOC has done, and, we talk about Hawaii, who she's liking and all that sort of thing. What do we do when these are progressives support the wrong candidate and they don't support candidates like yourself?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because you might have less electability than the Democrat or the establishment Democrat. That's what they're going to say.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times some of these progressives like Bernie and AOC, they have endorsed the wrong people in California. They've made wrong moves and states that are not their own.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that, from what I've heard from people in the campaign and grassroots supporters, they say it's a big issue because essentially Bernie's all the way on the East Coast.
Right.
Right. He's very disconnected from California.
They don't know necessarily.
They don't know.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. And I know he wants to make this massive movement, right? But you have to be a little bit skeptical, like we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
You have to be a little bit skeptical and of who's being, positioned to you. So the people that he hired are people that are in democratic politics that call themselves a progressive.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So then not a lot of them really are. They've worked for several campaigns and they know they know the Democratic establishment. So they put their support behind these people because they got the information from these same people who are just trying to make a career out of this.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, how do we change that then? The fact that with these campaigns, because I had a talk with somebody who works on the Bernie campaign, and she's like, well, what did the grassroots expect? How do they expect to get hired when they're going to hire these people who've had experience before? And I was like, well, wait a second. This is a new movement, a new day. We should find a way that we get the grassroots involved. You know what I'm saying? Rather than hiring people who've worked the same old. If you're fighting the same old, why do you hire the same old? Why don't you hire the grassroots?
Yeah. A former campaign manager, right? He worked on 10 campaigns in Utah. Mm-hmm. He told me one of the things that people still take for granted, or something that they could do, is writing a letter to Bernie in this case.
Yeah.
Like writing a letter, hey, I've been a grassroots supporter. I've done this and this and this. I think you were really miscalculated. You should probably look into it. Writing a letter to him specifically because he only has advisors around him right now, right? And me running this little campaign, right, trying to delegate something is still tough, right?
Yeah.
Just for one thing, phone banking,
Yeah.
right? Setting up the data, knocking on these zones, getting people to come out. He has to delegate so much on 50 states, and he still has to do the Senate, right? He still has to look good at the Senate. So when he delegates something, he doesn't know if it got done, right? But it didn't get done the correct way.
Right.
So all the way over here on the West Coast, we're far away. He doesn't really get to hear much about our politics.
Yeah.
And
also, it's just having communication.
Exactly. And it's also important, though, that we continue kind of to push back with this campaign, your campaign, all of these progressives running is bottom up.
Yeah.
It is not top down. We need to stop looking for necessarily approval from every Bernie surrogate and every decision Bernie makes. We push back in the way of propping up actual grassroots candidates, actual grassroots activists, and in that way saying, look, like, this is what we're doing for you, because he's not there to kind of be a monarch. He's there to pass on the power to everybody else. And I think if we expect to get directions from the top, we're not really doing our job. It's our job to kind of make sure that he's listening to what we're doing. Like, if we disagree with something they do, we let them know, but then we continue obviously fighting for the movement. And I think the best way to combat that is to pick and push candidates like yourself and other candidates that are doing it locally, right? Wasn't Shahid Buttar that said think globally but act locally?
Yeah. Bryan was in the room that day with us when we saw that, and that was like, I was like, wow, man. There's a couple candidates. I already knew about Shahid, but yes, he said when you think globally, you act locally.
Yeah.
So
Shahid's a very good guy. I like him. He was before that. I was like, oh, get the hell out of here. Shahid's here.
Yeah. Roshan brought him. He was just walking in with them. Like, hey guys, and they're like, Shahid's with him right behind him. It was great. Sorry, my bad.
No worries.
So tell us about charter schools. Do you believe that they should exist? Do you believe some are good? How do you feel like how that works, especially in California, where the LAUSD is extremely against charter schools, but there are people, especially in minority communities or with disabilities, that say charter schools have helped them find like a niche for that isn't provided by public schools.
Yeah, I think honestly, I prefer not to be in charter schools. Like, there be no charter schools, but I do see the argument for it. Right. In some instances, they have overperformed. Right, better performed than the local school.
Yeah.
In some instances, but in a lot of them, not really.
Yeah.
And they don't have to meet the same standards as public schools. Like, first of all, standardized testing, right, which takes away a couple weeks of lecture from teachers every year. They don't have to meet the same standards as that. Like even testing at all. In some of them. Also, special education. That's one of the things I found out about this past year was some charter schools don't even need to take special ed students.
Wow.
And if you're looking at it from a profit motive, right? It's messed up to say, but there's no profit motive in special education, right? It's essentially a societal benefit if we can help out the lowest people in our society, right? So charter schools didn't have to meet that standard because it's a drain on their profit.
Yeah.
So if everything went to charter, right, how our special education would be very neglected, right? And I'm in the LAUSD, right? I'm a substitute teacher right now because it's easier to run a campaign that way.
Yeah. So is Encore, our guest.
Yeah, our guest yesterday was.
Yeah, so they're becoming a full-time teacher. If you're a substitute, way easier to run a campaign.
Yeah.
But I've been a special ed sub, and I see the resources given to kids with learning disabilities, right? It's immense. Like when I was in public school, when I was a little kid, it wasn't like this. It was like 1 or 2 teachers max in a classroom. Here, I subbed for one class. I had like 12 students. There was 10 other aides in the class for this. So the LAUSD doesn't skimp on that. They actually take care of our special education students. Charter schools, though, if they meet all the same standards as public schools and they're still excelling, then yeah, there could be an argument for it. But they need to meet the exact same standards as our public schools right now. And one thing that we do see too, even with job security, right, with good teachers, they'll come from charter schools, they'll be there for a couple of years, and then they're like, I'm going to LAUSD because they take care of their teachers better. Yeah, we've been seeing that a lot.
Okay.
So that's an interesting thing of, how you get treated, and then also not meeting the same standards as public schools. So I'm against them, but I could be open to it if there is proof in the pudding, right?
Cool. I saw on your issues page, good stuff, nuanced stuff like ranked choice voting. Yeah. But one of the things that really jumped out to me was the democracy dollars.
Yeah.
I sense a little Andrew Yang there. We talked about it
before. I thought that was a great term.
Bernie first.
Yeah.
You love the term democracy dollars.
Yeah.
Give a little talk about what democracy dollars are and how we can be effective here in your district.
Well, it's great to remove apathy from voting, right? Because one of the steps for removing apathy is actually speaking to the candidate face to face, right? I mean, I've knocked people's doors. And multiple times. I mean, it's rare if somebody told me, oh, I've had a candidate come knock my door. I think out of maybe 1,200 conversations I've had, right? 1,000 conversations I've had, maybe 5 have told me that they've had a candidate come knock their door.
Yeah.
So that's one of the number one questions I ask. So that gets them invested immediately. But now, if you have multiple candidates coming to knock your door because you have a $100 voucher that could be funding their campaign, you're going to have more candidates at every level: city council, state assembly, state senate, congressional, because in an assembly district, there's about 200,000 voters. So if everybody gets a $100 voucher, there's essentially $20 million up for grabs for campaign finance.
Wow.
Yes.
And that's a local stimulus because that money is spent at the local sign shop, right? That's spent on staff workers for phone banking or for knocking doors, right? And this empowers grassroots candidates with good ideas that are connected to their community, that it empowers them to actually have a winning chance against an incumbent or against anybody that takes all this lobbyist or special interest money. So to me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, we were able to see it in Seattle, right? The public finance. How much money did Amazon spend on that? Did anybody have that?
Over $1 million.
$2 million, something ridiculous.
They didn't have that same amount of money, but they had a ton of it. They still had a lot of it, right? To be able to be like almost toe-to-toe with them. Yeah. That all of Amazon's candidates lost.
Yeah.
So we can do that here in California because, let's face it, this is a one-party rule in California. It's only Democrats.
Yep.
And all of them take money from the same people.
Yep.
So in order for us to possibly get a libertarian with good ideas, right? A Green Party person with good ideas, a no-party preference with good ideas, we need to give them money, but they're never going to be connected to this democratic machine if they're outside of it. So I think democracy dollars is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's local stimulus. Gets rid of apathy because we get candidates in front of people.
Yeah, voters. Sure.
And voters get to know, hey, I got $100 to get a candidate.
Yeah. It kind of like, it injects a form of interest, of excitement. So you definitely want to move to publicly funded elections eventually.
Yeah, because right now we can't get money out of politics, right? We need a constitutional amendment to overturn that.
Yes.
But we can try to neutralize it. Ranked choice voting would also do that. Right? You can vote your conscience, and then at the end you can just be like, all right, I guess I'll vote for Clinton, or I'll vote for Ted Cruz, or whatever it is, right? Whatever your conscience is for your third choice.
Yeah.
And as far as municipal internet, a lot of us have actually gone to city council and demanded, hey, we need municipal internet. We went to Pasadena. People have gone to LA. What do you think about that? Do you think it's something that we can do? It's also something that obviously is also at the federal level. But what can you do citywide or, for in your position, state assembly, to make something like this happen?
I believe there's limitation in California. I forgot to look that up specifically.
Limitation?
Yeah, like they can't
limitations?
do something in regards to municipal internet.
Mm-hmm.
Like California passed a law that prevents that.
Really?
Or puts a barrier for it, like kind of a high hurdle to jump through. Yeah. California was one of a handful of states that passed that.
So yes, you're right.
Right?
Yeah,
there was something in regards to that.
So we could actually implement it because I think Santa Monica, Beverly Hills.
But they have a high hurdle. They had a high hurdle to go through, and they're a richer area.
Yeah,
so
they are.
Let's
That's
do
why
it.
they shut it down.
But we need to get municipal internet because this stuff of having geographical monopolies.
Yeah.
Right, with our internet service provider, it's absurd.
Yeah.
And you'll go from, you guys watch South Park?
Yeah.
All right. I think they have some of the best commentary on social stuff. They don't pull any punches. So they made one on cable providers or internet service providers.
Yeah.
And they know that they're the only ones in town, so they treat all the customers like crap. Right?
Yeah.
And it really is. You guys ever dealt with the internet services?
Have we ever dealt with the internet?
That one is hilarious. It's exactly like that.
You know what I'm talking about? Like, oh yeah, hang on, let me put you on hold, and then they'll be on hold for like 5 hours, and then they're like, oh yeah, what was your question again?
Johnny,
that's not our department.
Nights?
And then they
we were
send you
getting
to
their
another
names.
department.
And like, what's your name? Okay, we have about 12 names written on a piece of paper. Like, we just spoke to.
We don't know
Michael,
who that is.
Sean, Teresa. We don't know where we're at right now. We can't get our internet to work properly. What the hell can we do? Especially struggling from a channel like this when we're so dependent on internet. It was almost like and here's the thing that really disgusted me about. We're using Spectrum now at AT&T, is that they repaired the ritzy business area over there in Pasadena. They redid all that, but over here they left the crap in the ground so many years ago, and it sucked. And the poorer neighborhoods are just neglected and given shit internet, while the businesses are given some of the best internet around. So
because they're the ones that complain.
Yeah,
they're the ones that have money and fund politicians. That's
exactly.
Why. It's kind of like in the poor areas. Politicians are neglected because first of all, you can't fundraise in the poor areas. That's what they think. Right?
Yeah.
And they don't turn out and vote. And if they do turn out and vote, it's just who's a Democrat, who's a Republican. I'm voting for the Democrat. I'm voting for the Republican.
Yeah.
Right? So it's that same issue.
Yeah.
You got a lot of money, they're going to listen to them. Yeah, municipal internet, though, 100% support it. We need better competition.
Yeah. It's so funny. You talk about that law. I think when I talked to the election integrity activist just recently, she's like, do you know that when George Bush was president, he made a law that you had to go through electronic machines of sorts? Like there was a law that was enacted that we had to use electronic voting machines that we couldn't do, like paper ballots. And it's a grandfather law and that a lot of people are dealing with. I have to look more into it, but we do have a lot of these like shadow government laws that are kind of hidden and snuck in there.
Yeah.
So we have to jump these hurdles to get over them. And the internet's being one of them. Now that you told me that, now I'm really pissed. I'm calling Ron after this show.
Yeah, no.
Calling Ron.
We're calling
We
Ron.
have to do it at state assembly. Like it's a huge thing that because I looked into it. Like I wanted to add it to my platform. Well, not my platform. The campaign I was helping out in 2018. We were looking at it, and there's a block on it. So Washington did it a different way.
Yeah, they were able to do it a different way.
They were able to do it a different way to increase competition in those areas. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
They did it kind of through the incentives.
Yeah.
Right. So they could incentivize more competition, and they got rid of monopolies on that.
They're very. I don't know what they're doing, but it's a really good city council and local government to emulate in Washington right now near Seattle.
Pasadena.
Like it's crazy.
I'm like Pasadena, right?
Yeah.
There's
So-
money all over the place. Investors in here.
We kind of talked about this earlier. What do you think about the whole Sanders Warren situation, and what are you seeing right now going into Iowa? Because Iowa is only a few days away.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited. I'm always excited. It's like game
Watch
day.
the combo couch.
Yeah, are you guys gonna be streaming it?
We'll be doing everything, my man.
I'll be an Eskimo over there.
Oh yeah, that's right. You guys are gonna be in Iowa. Right?
We're gonna be in New Hampshire. Fiorella's going to Iowa with Tina Desire Burke, and what I'm saying, we're gonna cover boots on the ground. We're gonna do the whole 9 yards. But yeah, I mean, this whole Sanders Warren thing, I think it's just for me. I think the establishment has unloaded their gun before the first primary can be voted on because they're scared and they know Bernie's going to come big in Iowa.
Yeah, so. I really do think so. This whole thing with Bernie and Warren, it's unfortunate that from what it seems like, Bernie's a genuine guy.
Yeah.
Really did consider her a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
for her, either it's a made up story, right? She had terrible political instincts and spoke out about it publicly, right?
Yeah.
Let it get out to the media, and then when she was confronted by it, she didn't even address it.
Yeah.
She just kind of let it stand. So that's
Yeah.
terrible political instincts.
Yeah.
Or it was something to try to take down Bernie.
Yeah.
Right?
And it seems like
malicious.
Yeah, and you're right, because it seems like she just hasn't gone after Biden in that same way. So I'm sensing a sort of like Warren Biden thing. And well, along those same lines, though, Bernie Sanders is away much of the time now because he's in the Senate and he has to deal with impeachment.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion on the Democrats impeaching Donald Trump right now during this year, and also on what they're impeaching him on? They're not impeaching him on emoluments.
They
They're
should have gone
impeaching
after
him
emoluments.
on Ukraine. Yeah.
Yeah, they should have. Yeah, the Ukraine stuff. I mean, yeah, he did it, but even then, that's still, like, to some people, it could be considered like a subjective crime, right? Like kind of like excessive force by police, right? If you have a people of like the Rodney King beating, right? All of those people said, nah, it wasn't excessive force, right? That's kind of a subjective thing. Similarly with this abuse of power, it could be considered like a subjective thing. So I think they should have gone after him something harder. Emoluments.
Yeah.
Right? Emoluments, number one. I mean,
yeah.
He's been doing it. I mean, just because he had all those manila folders. Remember when he got sworn in, he goes, oh yeah, I'm what is it? I'm divesting
stuff and handing it over to my children.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, can we look at it? And he's like, no.
I mean, Dick Cheney did the same freaking thing. We didn't do anything about him. We didn't care about the emoluments that took place in Iraq when the Republicans did it. So, I mean, once again, the corruption calendar can't just start when it's a person that's a little bit over the top and curses at people. Yeah. If somebody's got to go, they all got to go. And that's the one thing I loved about DICTATOR, is because he said he'll prosecute any corrupt corporate Democrat as well.
Yeah.
So if we're going to clean house, let's not just look at Donald Trump and say, oh, he's the most corrupt. You know, I mean, Barack Obama can be brought to charges. Bill Clinton, was awful. So, I mean, you know, don't you think that the impeachment process now and what they're doing is actually helping Donald Trump?
I don't think it's helping him.
Why not?
I don't think it's helping him.
You don't think it's making him look like a victim when they're trying to impeach him on a phone call?
I think that Republicans were always going to vote for him regardless. They're going to turn out because Republicans are good at turning out their base come presidential time, right? So they were always going to vote for him.
The undecideds in the middle, you don't think they're going to be like, this is just bullshit. They're being so hypocritical. Once again, the Democrats, I'm voting for Donald Trump.
Well, that's the thing is, if it's Biden, yeah, I think it's going to be, it's going to really, it's going to really help Trump. Yeah. But if it's someone like Bernie, every Republican, every Libertarian that I've met, every single one says, I'm scared of Bernie's policies.
Yeah.
I don't want him to win. But I will say this, that guy's honest.
Yeah.
He will talk with people.
That's true.
So even if Democrats do this, and if it's Bernie Sanders in the general, they can't say that Bernie Sanders is like the other Democrats, right? Yeah. So that's the one case I could see it not hurting. I mean, not hurting Democrats.
Yeah.
And actually winning over independents and stuff. Yeah. Because Bernie Sanders and AOC, they call out corruption. They're good at that.
Well, let's get to a little foreign policy to wrap this up. Fam, you want to ask the first question, or you want me to go into it? You want me to get the first one so you can get this one? I don't know which one you love better. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Maduro. I know you're running for state assembly in California, but however, if we go to war, if we have a conflict, it's going to be the children in your district that are going to have to go off and fight these wars. So therefore, I am always asking, state assemblymen, city councilmen about foreign policy, because it does matter that they know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Nicolas Maduro, because it's been a big thing. And this is an area where a lot of people feel that Bernie Sanders should be more vocal, stick up for Nicolas Maduro, but he tends to stay away because of fear he'll be demonized as a socialist, communist, whatnot.
Which he already is being demonized.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Do you think that Nicolas Maduro is a dictator or the rightful leader of Venezuela? And secondly, what would you do about the sanctions that are imposed on Venezuela?
I think he's the rightful leader of the country.
Thank you.
I mean, what do they point to? What is it?
The elections weren't fair.
The elections were unfair. There's a lot of elections that are unfair everywhere.
Yeah,
we
here
do voter
in the
suppression.
state.
We just do it in a nicer way.
Yeah.
Right? They just suppress the vote here in the United States in a much nicer way. Right? Yeah. Inconsistencies will bring up your case, right? Get the evidence out, right?
Yeah.
To show it. But even then, we did it with George Bush, right? He lost the popular vote and he lost the electoral vote.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court still said, doesn't matter, George Bush is still president.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, that's a weak argument just for election interfering or whatever, because it wasn't something so blatant. And he does have supporters there.
Right.
Sanctions, I'm a non-interventionist. Like, I should think they should leave them.
Yeah.
They should just leave them, and they should get rid of the sanctions. Let them determine how they want to run their country. If we want to do trade with them, great, right? But we should get rid of the sanctions because we did it on Cuba. It didn't help. They still made it out of like 50, 60 years. We did the strongest sanctions against them.
Yeah.
Venezuela, we're just hurting the people.
Exactly.
And they're hating us more.
Yeah.
So I think, honestly, we should get rid of the sanctions on them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Israel-Palestine is a huge conflict right now. It divides many, even progressives, up how to deal with the situation with Israel and Palestine. So what is your opinion on what Donald Trump did, where he calls a win-win for both sides, the two-state solution that he just put out there?
Wasn't it? I read a little bit about it. I think it had to do with pretty much whatever land Israel kind of just took over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just leave it for Israel, and you guys.
Oh, he's gonna give them money and blah blah blah. And here's the thing: that's beautiful about it: Palestinian representatives were not even in the room.
Yeah.
It's like, I love that.
So it's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
They're
not here.
They weren't even.
Well,
there.
he's gonna do what he normally does. I'm gonna give them a lot of money, and they're gonna just take it and shut up. But I don't think they're going to.
Yeah, no, there's some people that, hey, that land's sacred to them, right?
Yeah.
That land is, their ancestors were there.
Yeah.
Just kind of like we did with the Native Americans.
Yeah.
Even
that's exactly. I mean, that's exactly.
Even like the old white guy from Up, right? He didn't want to sell his house to that massive thing, right? And you should have that right. If this is your land, sorry, too bad, can't do it, right? And I think that they should, what is it? Encroachments? How Israel's been encroaching on that land, Palestine.
Yes.
Honestly, I think that land should go back to Palestine. But then, it's a long debate.
Well, no, I agree with you. I just think the way to do it is to kind of have more of a heavy hand with Israel, because all we've been doing is enabling their behavior, enabling what they're doing to the Palestinian people, and they're our allies, so they've gotten away with it. We give them money. We spend so much money that we give them every year. We help them have these weapons to attack these people, and all they want to do is expand on the Middle East. So I think that's where it comes in. Whether is a two-state solution even viable at this point if Israel is going to abuse their power? You know what I mean? Should they just be one state where, like in South Africa, where you ended apartheid and these people now coexist in peace, whether you want to call it, Israel, Palestine, or a whole new thing? It's a place where both of them should exist in peace. So that's still up for debate. If it was a fair two-state solution, I wouldn't be opposed to that. But what a two-state solution seems to be is very heavily pro-Israel and forget the Palestinians.
Yeah,
so.
here, just take this money. You're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Take the money and shut up. Brian, tell us where we can find you. Get a few dollars. AB5. What do you stand on AB5?
Which one's AB5?
That's the independent contractor bill, whatnot.
That's the thing is, I think it's one of those bills that was kind of rushed. Right?
Yes.
It had a good idea,
yes,
right? To address the Lyft and Ubers and all that stuff, but it's impacting a lot of other industries.
Yes, badly.
Yeah.
So a lot of bills, they seem to use that. They kind of use people's emotions to get them to swing to vote for these bills, whether it be the marijuana bill, whether it be the AB5 bill, and it really now this Airbnb bill. Once again, all that with the living and stuff. I know a lot of poor people who really depended on using that Airbnb. Now they're limited to what they can do, and the rich people who they were tending to kind of curtail, they're still doing what they want to do.
Yeah.
So
100%. Like we need to some of these bills, they don't take into account these little things, right?
Yeah.
And with AB5, since it's already passed, it's pretty rare you get a politician to say, "Oh, I was on the wrong. We got to change it. I was wrong." Right?
Yeah.
So I think we need less ego from our politicians as well, right? To be able to admit we're wrong, right? And because then we could work on fixing it. Because I'm seeing it everywhere. Like AB5 has been like Uber and Lyft drivers. Maybe I don't know if they like it, right?
Yeah.
But everybody else, all these reporters are really hating it right now.
Brian, tell everybody where they can find you, get a few dollars, where they can help you on out. I think you had a great interview today.
Yeah.
I think you're a great candidate. You're not a sleeper anymore. Now everybody knows they can't sleep on Bryan Mesinas Perez because he's coming for you. Let us know.
So you guys can go to my website, votebryan49.com. I did it with Squarespace, so it came out all right. It's not too bad for somebody who's never designed, who doesn't have an artsy side to him. Votebryan49.com. That's Bryan with a Y. You can also find me on Instagram, Bryan Mesinas Perez. right? Twitter, Bryan Mesinas. The Perez didn't fit on Twitter. I got a long name. I got a really long name. And my Instagram page, I don't have a handle because they deleted my other Facebook page.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bryan, very much, everybody. That's Bryan Mesinas Perez for District 49 State Assembly. Great candidate. Look him up. Help him out. For Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella.
Jody Sue on the ones and twos. We'll be back with Soraya Foss, Libertarian president for Libertarian candidate for president.
Combo out.